Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Skip Happens. It's going to be fun. It'll be exciting. I'm looking down the table because I have some pretty cool guests right over here. I'm telling you all about this. If you're tuned in tonight, you're going to want to hang out because I think we have just a great podcast. I'm going to call him a superstar. I'm going to call him an All-American. I'm going to call him one of the nicest people I think I've ever met in my whole entire life. Wow. You got to see this. And there he is. You can look right at that camera. Don McPherson. Yeah, that one there. They're like all over the place in this room. Hey, my friend, Don McPherson is with us. And if I go like this, way down there at the end of the table is my friend Tracy Dando, right?
Yes,
Dando.
Yes.
And she is the founder and director and all the big stuff when it comes to a safe space. And we're going to talk about that here in just a little bit. But I'm going to go back to actually this guy right here. This guy right here. Does he look familiar? All right. Well, I'm all nervous. Guys, I'm all giddy.
Don't be nervous.
Let me read this while the camera is not on me. Don McPherson, an All-American quarterback at Syracuse University. He went on to play professionally in the NFL in Canada. I think it was like 7 years, if not a little bit more. And of course, just what was it? 1987? What was it? 11 and 1? Is that what?
11-0-1.
11-0-1. That was it. Under Coach Mack, right?
Yes.
Under Coach Mack. Man, do you still think about those days? Does it seem like it was just yesterday or
No. No, it seems like another lifetime ago.
Really? Does it really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't remember most of it. What I remember is what I see on video. So I remember it probably the same way you do.
I don't know. Because I watched you.
Right.
I watched you that season under Coach Mack, and we were talking before we went on with the lights and the cameras and all that. I worked at another radio station in town, and just Coach Mack, I just loved him, and I know he just lost. Well, he's been gone for a little bit, and apparently his wife just passed not too long ago. So, but just a big part of Syracuse University history. And you used to come Coach Mack would come into the radio station every week and he would bring another player, and he brought you in one week. And I happened to be the guy pushing the buttons and making sure you sounded good on the mic and all that. And now I look at you, you look the same, dude. All right. There's a little gray in the,
I don't look. I pulled up a picture the other day from 4 years ago and I look different.
What? No way.
Yeah.
What? I don't think you do.
Well, I appreciate that.
I see the Don McPherson. I see the Don McPherson from 1987. I see the Don McPherson from the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah.
You remember those days.
I can't touch my toes.
What?
I barely remember. It's not that I don't remember those days. I've been really fortunate that I've had a lot of things go on since then.
Yeah. Like what? Talk to us a little bit. So, okay. So you've been working like with mental health. Working, helping people through different crises and all that. And you yourself, you're great at speaking and great at putting on these conferences and all that. But then you say that, that you don't want to be followed. You don't want, right. So explain that to me a little bit.
Well, I think that what I said earlier was something I actually told Coach Mack when he wanted me to be captain, and part of him wanting me to be captain was to corral me because I wasn't and remain a very independent person. And I told him that I'll lead the team, but I don't want to be followed. And part of that was that I don't do well with groups. Because group thinking tends to cloud individual thinking. And when you're, 18, 19 years old, trying to find your way and the crowd of guys that I say we're all in voluntary and involuntary relationships. Okay. And the voluntary relationship was being a part of a football team. The involuntary relationships were the individuals in that group. And so when the behavior went in a way that made me uncomfortable, I was never cool. I was never, a slick guy. I was never a tough guy in any way. And the persona of a football player was that I was cool. I was good with women. Yeah, I was a guy's guy, and I was none of those things.
Oh, wow.
And so I had to avoid. It's why I wore a shirt and tie to class. Started when I was in high school, just because I wanted to throw people off. That I wasn't a certain kind of person.
You were playing sports. I mean, if you played sports and you had a game that day, you had to wear a shirt and tie.
I wore shirt and tie to school every day.
Oh, every day.
Every day.
Every day. Wow.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
And why was that? What was the reasoning behind that?
The initial reason was when I was in high school, all of my siblings, so I'm the youngest of 5, very close in age, and all of my siblings went to Malvern High School in Long Island, which was a 50-50 black and white high school. A lot of social justice history in that community. But then my sophomore year, I transferred to a school that was predominantly white because they had a better football program. And I didn't want the white folks in that town and in that school thinking that I was the black kid from across the tracks who came there just to play football, which is exactly what I was. literally across the tracks and literally just moved so
how do you fit in, right?
Yeah,
right. So when I wore sophomore year of high school, I started wearing a shirt and tie to school.
Makes sense.
And I kept doing that when I got here, and my teammates still joke with me just last week that I carried a briefcase, and they always said there was nothing in it. It might have been true.
Looked good though.
It looked the part.
Yeah.
And it was that I didn't want. I always say that I play football, but I'm not a football player. And I was always very self-conscious about what that connotation of a football player was, because it wasn't me. And if I tried to behave that way, I always got in trouble.
You know, I'm having maybe a tough time understanding this, because you're a tough guy. Come on. You were the guy. I mean, let's talk about the team a little bit. You were the quarterback. Everybody surrounded you. Everybody protected you. Everybody made sure.
It made me tough.
Well, I think it did. I mean, I see me as a fan watching the game. I'm saying, oh, these guys are tough. I would never want to mess with these guys. I would, you know what I'm saying, and all that stuff. But now I'm seeing this side of Don McPherson that is so real and so true to life, authentic. Good. Yes.
What you're seeing is my wholeness, and this is what I talk to, using the word authentic, is about being authentic and whole and evolving, because as we were talking a moment ago, we deal with a lot in life, right? We have to continue to evolve with how life changes. And on the field, yes, I was very tough on the field. On the field, I was actually no different than a lot of I'm laughing because a lot of knucklehead athletes. I once separated my shoulder. It was the worst injury I ever had in my life.
Oh, it's gotta hurt.
It was awful if I described it. And my bone was literally detached. The only thing holding my arm on my body was flesh. And I literally told Doc Baker as he was taping me up that I won't be able to pitch the ball going to my left. That's that's
where your head was.
That's where my head was. And denying, and by the way, this is exactly a part of the work that I do. Denying my pain, denying my physical pain, denying my feelings, denying myself my feelings is one of the fundamental problems with how boys are raised, to completely ignore our feelings. And so football was the perfect platform to do that and allow people to think that was who I am, when it didn't define. It defined very little of me, but it was predominantly what made me a quote unquote real boy, a real man. Wow. And it was a facade.
Wow. When did you, was it mid-90s that you started working with the gender-based violence prevention theory program, you coming out and saying, hey, I'm going to help you? Was it that long ago? It
was, I'm in my 30th year of doing gender-based violence prevention work. I retired from.
God bless you.
Yeah. Talk about being tough to a detriment, right?
Yeah.
I retired from football and went to Northeastern University to work with a man named Richard Lapchick, whose dad was Joe Lapchick, the first head coach and general manager of the New York Knicks.
Really?
And in 1950, there's a film out now called Sweetwater.
Okay.
It's about the story about Joe Lapchick signing Nat Sweetwater Clifton to an NBA contract, the first black player to be signed to an NBA contract. Wow. So Richard Lapchick watched his dad integrate the NBA. His dad was being called all kinds of racial epithets after that, and having death threats and being life threatened because he integrated the NBA. And Richard Lapchick, a little boy at the time, watched this go on and literally dedicated his life to issues of racism in sport. So I got to Northeastern at the Center for the Study of Sports Society to work with Rich, who had just come back from Nelson Mandela's inauguration because of his work in the anti-apartheid movement.
Okay.
And when I got there thinking that I was going to be doing work around racism in sport is when I met a guy named Jackson Katz, who had just created this gender violence prevention program. And I was hooked.
Now, does that have a lot to do with the the book that you wrote, you throw like a girl.
Yes.
And the blind spot of masculinity.
Correct. So
tell us about that.
The book. So when I learned about gender-based violence gender-based violence, when I learned about masculinity and violence against women, there's a chapter in the book titled 29. I was 29 years old.
Okay.
The first time I heard this concept, and I'd been doing drunk driving programs and a number of other programs on different social issues. It was the first time I heard anyone talk about gender or issues of men's violence against women. And the pressing question for me was, why was I 29 years old and for the first time hearing this? It was the first time at all the work that I've been doing with young people prior to that. Why was this something I never considered? And that so I started in that process, started thinking about, when did I learn what it meant to be a man and how did I learn it? It wasn't explicit. It wasn't intentional. It wasn't deliberate from adult men. Everything was inferred. And so I went back to what was the worst insult you could hear as a boy. You throw like a girl, being compared to a girl in any way.
Yeah. Growing up, hear that all the time with, just different things that we do in life. Come on, man, you throw like a girl.
Right.
Like, really?
Or man up.
Or man up.
Right?
Man up. Yeah, exactly.
And so the two things about that language, one is you learn that women and girls are less than, wouldn't be an insult otherwise. And fundamentally, we see boys learn to see women and girls as less than. And number two is, in that moment that we hear that or we use that, that's our way of saying man up. And so it creates this very limited understanding of masculinity, as well as simultaneously saying that women and girls are less than, which is really kind of dangerous if you think about it. We're limiting ourselves, and yet at the same time we're seeing women and girls as less than that.
Go ahead, Tracy. I know you want to say something.
No, I feel it. I feel that comment a lot. And even as a girl that was an athlete, like, it put us back down even further. And there was no getting up there. There was no competing with that, right? Because you were always less than. You were always less than.
Right.
But when I look at it now, less than what? And it was strength, right? Like, we're comparing strength at this point. And as a woman, I don't want to be as strong as you guys, right? Yeah, that's what we're competing at in athletics, as also in what's strong to you? What does that mean exactly?
And I always say that men have co-opted certain terms and then limited what those terms mean. So when you say strength, is strength sharing your emotions or hiding from them?
Ooh, well, up to this point,
right?
Yeah.
And so we say he's the strong, silent type. No, he's emotionally constipated.
He's completely shut down.
He's completely devoid.
It's going nowhere.
Right. Yeah. Right. He's completely disconnected from himself.
Absolutely.
And so that's not strength. Ultimately, that's breaking you down. That is weakness at its highest. And so even like when you say, because men have co-opted what strength is, what power is, what control is, and narrow the ways in which those things are defined or seen. And that's what I say. I use the term narrow masculinity because it's narrowly defined.
What about women? They want to be in. I don't even know how I say things
just
wrong all the
Skip.
time. All right,
I gotcha. I gotcha.
Thank you, Tracy. God, I'm so glad you're here. Because I'm so wrong.
I will clean up the pieces.
By the way,
thank you.
By the way, the one thing that I say about doing this work all these years is that women allowed me to be wrong. And it's necessary. And by the way, it's the same thing in terms of every conversations around race and gender and class. And anytime we have to have a conversation, we have to extend grace to one another.
Yes. Or we don't learn.
Or we don't learn. Or we don't grow. And we can't do it together. And it's one of the things that our culture struggles with tremendously right now.
So maybe we need to do more together. Like, would be with like sports. We have women playing sports like they've never played them before, in the way of being on the same team as a guy. And we're reading and hearing about all this stuff that's going on. How does that fall into this? You know what I'm saying? Now, obviously a woman, sports, or Don, just like you read about, like certain schools want to start, girls in sports that used to be all boys.
Yeah. I don't think we need to classify what's a boy sport versus a girl sport, right? I think that, do I have any pull to play football? Absolutely not. But if there's a woman that does, more power to her. Like, go at it, right? I think that we've always had rules based on gender. And first of all, like we had this discussion a little bit ago, like all of us are, we are made up of masculine and feminine energy, right? We've got both. Yet in the world we live in, I'm asked to be a lot more masculine than I actually want to. But to play in this world, I have to. It's my protection strategy. I want to be feminine, but that also gets taken advantage of a lot of the facts. So I think that the world of athletics, it says here, right, as a volleyball player, here are your incredibly small shorts, tight spandex, tight ass shirt, right?
Well, it's funny
now go
that you
out there and
that.
jump up and down.
Right.
Like, well, who designed this, right? Like, who designed this? So what were you gonna say?
No. I was listening to you because you know I've had my daughters played, my niece played volleyball, and you're right. They wear these shorts that are pretty much.
Yeah, I can jump in normal shorts. I can jump in.
But why is that? Just I don't know. I can't. I don't know.
There's an explanation for it, but
all right.
But even the explanation for it is pretty simple. It's designed by sports as the dominion of men. Yeah. It's designed by men, and if women are going to do it, it's kind of like what I was saying before about what we were talking earlier about boys who are trying to and men who are trying to advance and live a more whole, authentic selves, but they're still trying to do it with a sword in their hand. In other words, they don't want to relinquish that which they think makes them a real man. And the same thing is true about how men have allowed women into the sporting world. It's you need to come into the sporting world. You can compete. You can do all those things that a guy can do, but we still need to objectify you. We still need to see you as a woman, which is like women in field hockey wearing skirts. Right.
Yeah,
and by the way, there was just a story that I saw recently of that girls are playing hockey at a higher rate than boys now in youth hockey. And yet the equipment is still designed for boys. And there's a group out of Cornell right now that is looking at the design of hockey equipment and how it's designed for the male torso. It's designed for, so in the safety aspect, we still haven't evolved to help girls compete in sports in a more safe environment.
I have a granddaughter that's playing hockey. Yeah. I know exactly what you're saying. Actually, all three locally are playing hockey. And well, I have one granddaughter here locally and then two grandsons. They all play. But you're right. It's all the same gear. It's all the same gear.
And we expect that women should conform to men instead of saying, hey,
hey, did you what'd you notice when you drove up? Did you see all the neighbors had their lights out?
I did not notice that.
I did not notice that
until I brought it up. Yes. And then I'm like, look over there. You know, we have such a, not to change the subject, but to add a little humor in here, but we have such a close-knit neighborhood. Love it in this neighborhood. Been here a long time, and we're all like family. We all do our own thing. But so we always, you know, I was talking about the podcast, and I said, yeah, Don McPherson's coming over. And they're like, oh, we got to get the orange and blue lights on, you know. So it's just
Valentine's Day is over.
Yeah, it's over. Exactly. Get the orange
out with the red.
But you see, I'm just saying these, and you're right. These are people, all right, they're over 40. But still, you know, I mean, but it's a big part of their lives. Just, you know, that football team back in '87 here at SU and wearing number 9.
Yes.
See, you remember that?
Yep. Yeah, I remember that part. No, and you know, I do. Probably nothing warms my heart more than, and this has happened recently a couple of times when I meet someone and they say, my best memories were with my dad going to games, or with my grandfather going to games. That is a gift that I was privileged to embody. I don't take credit for a lot of things that I did not intentionally do. I can't take credit for my talent. That was God-given. I can't play the piano. I can't sing worth a lick. I tried.
Yeah, I mean, we
all
don't
want me to bust out in song.
Well,
all your fine equipment will start to melt in different ways. But I could do that one thing that our culture, our society, valued to a point now. It's monetized in a way that I don't like. But our society valued, and there are so many people who are of equal talent and skill and gifts to offer that we don't value, and that bothers me immensely.
You here, and I keep going back to, but you being who you are and what you've done, and now you're telling us, you know, you don't want anybody to follow you, but yeah, no, did you No. I think because everything that I can't see what or hear what's going through your mind, or even
you don't.
Maybe I'm afraid to ask.
Yeah, you don't want to.
But did you have to actually go and talk to somebody and get some help and say, "Look, I've done all this, and I don't know why I feel this way"?
Well, I have gone to talk to someone. I've been in therapy, but not about this.
Oh, okay.
I've always been very, very clear about this. And you know, I'll tell you a quick story, and it's one that right now the city is dealing with. Is there's an intersection underneath 81, right at Harrison.
I know it well.
You know the intersection.
Yep.
I do.
And if you look out the right side of your car, and as a quarterback and as a starter, I was in the front seat. The quarterbacks would take a car over to the stadium prior to the team would come over in a bus. And yes, so the quarterbacks would get there early. So
we're getting secrets.
We aren't getting secrets.
It wasn't that big of a secret. We'd always get there early before everyone else.
Okay.
And no matter what state it was, we did it at home. And so, and as a quarterback, as the starter, I sat in the front seat for two and a half years. And at that light, if you look out the window, the hood is right there. And right now, if you go left, the hood is still there.
Yeah.
And when I say the hood, the projects, I'm talking about
I know
one of the worst, one of the worst
okay.
communities for Black people in the country is right there.
Wow.
But to the left are billions of dollars worth of right now of healthcare and medical and higher education, and they're feet away from each other. And I knew then that if I got out of the car, and I won't use the language that I typically would use, I'll be respectful of your your platform. If I just got out of the car, I was just another Black man on the street. But I'm going to go left, and arguably 50,000 white people predominantly are going to cheer for me.
Right.
And that dichotomy was never lost on me. That was my experience. And so, and I don't say that in a bad way. I don't say that in a negative way.
I hear you.
That's just the reality of being very cognizant of how I showed up.
Interesting.
In that space.
Wow. What do you think? It's kind of go off subject again, but with the projects being right there, you know, within feet of a whole completely different area, why do you think that was done that way? Do you think?
Well, you're getting into the history of how communities were redlined and how this was intentional.
Yeah, this was planned.
This is what happened in the Bronx. This is what happened in Detroit.
Really, I've always wondered that.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not dumb, so I'm thinking they did this because of that, and it's like wow, that's crazy.
It's how marginalized communities, for lack of a better way of saying it, were maintained. And how segregation was maintained. And so anyway.
All right. I want to know, how did both of you actually get to work together? How did Tracy, how did you meet Don? And, you know, with you got Safe Space going and oh my God, it's so awesome. You've just been developing programs, and I know you took over that building, the old Strathmore paint building.
It's actually, we're actually in a different one.
All right, never mind. That one's gone.
We're down.
We haven't talked in a few months, all right?
We haven't. You've been busy.
I know. We both
same with me. So yeah, we're actually in the University Block building downtown.
Okay.
Yep, we just opened this month. So it's interesting because when I started Safe Space, I tackled it from topics that I knew and I understood. When it comes to men's mental health, I'm not going to pretend I know or understand it, but I have been affected by it, right? Okay. I guess that's the best way of putting it. And so I knew that when we started our men's group, that I needed a very specific person to lead that group. He had to be, for lack of a better word, a man's man, because he had to be sort of the cool kid that was like, no, guys, listen, like, this is okay. Like, it's actually kind of cool to work on your mental health. So I found him, and I'm sorry, it's not Don. I felt like I was building to that. It's not Don.
He's going, huh?
His name was Mac, and he's incredible. And so a few months back, no, not even, I don't know, 6 months back, Mac had brought his name up to me. He was like, I just wanted you to check him out. Like, he's doing some really incredible things in the community. And so I started following him.
Cool.
And then we recently had a video done. I think it was that you saw we saw a video. You saw something. You reached out.
Yeah.
On men's mental health. Solon Quinn did this beautiful video about suicide and men, and the statistics are alarming. Like, they are alarming. And Don had reached out. And so we sat down a little while ago. And you know how you were talking about, what did you call it when you get goosebumps?
I got the chicken noodles.
Okay. Never heard that, first of all. You've never heard that.
I never heard it either.
But we sat down for like hours at the Salt City Market, and that's what was happening, because it was like we were so aligned with a mission, and we could both see it so clearly. And to finally, I don't know, it's like it just it was just one of those moments.
And what about you, Don? What's your side of this?
Well, the subtitle of my book is The Blind Spot of Masculinity.
Yes.
And where that came from was, it's one thing that if we're going to ask men to address issues of men's violence against women, we have to remove the chivalry from it. Because if my job as a man is to be a protector of my woman, then don't mess with my violent masculinity, right? I'm going to need that to protect. So we have to remove that. And it means that and I always say that when the conversation goes from what we're asking men to do for women to what we want men to do for themselves, it becomes a scarier conversation for men. And to Tracy's point, the subtitle of my book is The Blind Spot of Masculinity. I came from that from a young man watching me all day at a conference years ago. He was a mentee, and at the end of the day of a long conference day, he said, Don, you haven't eaten all day. You've been talking all day. You haven't. And I said to him, I'm better when I'm hungry and ornery and uncomfortable. I'm a New Yorker. I need to be uncomfortable and intolerable to be effective. And he said, isn't that a blind spot? You're talking about being healthy. You're talking about being whole. And so the one thing that I appreciate about talking with Tracy, that when we met that day, was I've spent most of my life doing this work in and around higher education and an academic setting. And that doesn't work for men, because in that academic setting, we're toxic. Masculinity is a problem. And we're not truly talking to men about how do we take care of ourselves. And I've been doing that. I'm in my 30th year of doing the work that the way that I define it is the work that women and survivors have asked men to do, not the work that our boys need. Yeah. And if we're truly going to start doing that work, and that's why when we started talking, we weren't throwing out all of the sort of the technical terms and the jargon around whether it was mental health or masculinity in ways that keep us from this really honest conversation where we both have to, as individuals, we talked about this a little bit before we went live, was about we're all experiencing life that's messy, that's hard, that's uncomfortable, that's scary. Sure. And we have to learn how to access the language and the safe space to do it, the comfort to do it. That I think is really profound. So when we met, it was like all these things that were, it wasn't two clinicians having a conversation. It was two human beings connecting on what makes us human.
Right.
And that was the conversation we had.
As men, I'm going to throw this out, ask.
Oh.
Do you actually, is there a part of you that craves that vulnerability with another man? But like, do you actually feel a wall come up? Like, do you actually feel yourself say, oh, I can't really go there?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we've been doing it for so long. There's a feminist scholar named Bell Hooks who just passed away about 2 years ago. And I quote her in my book. It's the only person I quote. And the quote is, the first act of violence that patriarchy asks of males is not violence against women. It's violence against ourselves. And we know it. We know it very, very, we're very acutely aware of it because it's part of our shame. It's part of our shame that we are not quote unquote real men. We're not cowboys or firemen. Like everybody wants to be a cowboy or fireman when he grows up, right? We're not that. We're accountants. We're swim instructors. We're not all tough guys.
Right.
And so we're constantly incapable of living up to this unrealistic image of masculinity. And so there's a tremendous amount of insecurity. So we know the things that we do some of it's become so second nature. We might might say, "Oh, I'm doing it now," but we do it. We all men do it. We crave. That's what sports is. That's why we men have man caves, right? Where they can gather. We name it something different to create that connection, and we crave the kind of connection that we had when we were boys, because there's trauma there. Yeah. That we had to start. We had the first woman that boys see as less than is our mothers, because at some point in our childhood, we learned that what mom does is beneath us. It's the less than. I can't wear my mother's lipstick. I can't wear my mother's shoes. And that we can later on see it as being homophobic or anti-gay. But that's not how it's learned. It's learned as that's beneath you. Yeah. And there's shame attached to that. Wow. And that's something that we as boys, we learn from a very early age, very, very early age. And we practice it because it's, and for women who also promote that, it's not that women are necessarily anti-gay or homophobic. It's that they're afraid that their boy's going to give up the privilege and the power of being male, right? He's going to give up that privilege. He's going to give up that male privilege. So it's a kind of a deep-seated thing that we
very deep-seated.
Yeah. I'm like going, holy cow. It's deep.
It's deep.
Wow. It is deep. There's no doubt it's deep. Just amazing to listen to this and the relationship now that you two have and what you're doing for the community together.
We're just getting started.
We're just getting started.
And that's why I am like so glad that you're sitting here in my pod zone, which not many people are allowed down here. I'm just saying.
Yeah, listen, there was a what do they call that door that doesn't really exist?
Yeah, it does. Yes,
exactly. Really impressed. Yeah. Really impressed.
When for example, there's a laundry room off the through here. Yeah. My wife needs to ask permission to come down these stairs to go to the laundry room. I'm just saying.
Is there a secret knock?
There is. Okay. Ask Zach what that is. He'll tell you what that is. But I do have to say, I was talking about the neighbors earlier, and of course they're watching this. and Maria said over 70. And because we're talking about being over 40.
Oh, over 40.
Okay. And she says he still has great eyes.
Aww.
Well, that's the only thing. I think that's the only thing that doesn't go. That's the.
Oh man. I was reading some of the comments here. So, like I said, they're probably there. I'm sure when you pulled up, they were like, "Oh my God, he's there! Look, get over here! Look out the window! There he is, walking up his driveway." No, I'm just saying. But we all have fun conversations.
I just sit in the car and pick my nose or something.
He's human.
He's human. And to go back to that, do you think we all have a blank space?
What do you mean a blank space?
You were talking about
a blind spot.
A blind spot.
Yeah. A blind spot. I'm sorry. Do you think we all have a blind spot and then we just don't know what it is yet? I'm very careful not to generalize very often about people, but I've been around long enough and I've been around people long enough. Mm-hmm. We're all. What's made it worse is social media is anything but social. I wanted to talk about that.
And it is extraordinarily isolating. Mm-hmm. There's recent research that's come out from the Surgeon General that loneliness has the health impact of 15 packs of cigarettes a day. Of how
that's what we're seeing,
of how destructive it is, and so and that's revealing some of the ways in which we so many people are living with their blind spots. So many people living inauthentic lives, living lives where they're trying to live up to something that doesn't define them. Mm-hmm. And to the point that we've kind of all expressed it one way or another, dealing with either trauma or unresolved things that we've pushed down in order to survive. Mm-hmm. Because they can be debilitating. Yeah. And so we push them down and they don't go away. They rest in
manifest in other ways.
And then they manifest in other ways.
Yep. So being lonely, that has just gotten nothing like it used to be. And you're saying, and I somewhat agree with you, that it's because of social media, because everybody's just they're by themselves and they're on their phone.
Mm-hmm.
Yet they'll tell you they're not by themselves because they're probably doing something with somebody on the phone, chatting or texting or something. But still, so social media, how do we handle that? Because reality is we're getting older, times are changing, technology is advancing, and it all seems to be going in that direction where now we have AI. Now I mean, it's now being in the media, AI is good and bad.
Yeah.
I mean, I love it for certain things. I hate it for others because somebody could take my voice and, that's the bad side of it.
Yeah.
The good side, when I got to write a commercial or I need to put I'm just having a brain fart, I'll just put the facts in and it'll spit out something for me.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
Yeah.
That scares me.
What? I put Don McPherson in there.
Please don't.
It did. It came out All-American. Great guy.
Great guy.
It did not.
Yeah.
No.
All right, go
I
ahead.
think the problem is technology is moving faster than the human brain and body are.
Yeah.
So
No doubt,
that
no
is
doubt.
why we are seeing anxiety and depression like we are. We are trying to adjust as a society, and technology is just zooming past us, right? And it's why we're seeing it in our children. And the problem is because we haven't been here before, we don't have coping strategies to deal with why we're here.
Mhm.
We don't teach this to our children. We don't teach, first of all, feelings. We don't teach emotions. We don't teach of how to process those. We don't teach of tools. And now we're eliminating community. So like your biggest thing to combat mental health is your toolbox and then your community that surrounds you. And social media is eliminating all of those in one hit. And so that is why we are seeing our children and our teens like take the blunt of this right now.
And I totally agree. But what do we do?
Yeah.
That's a question that I don't think anybody has an exact answer to.
There are some things and there are some things that I don't think technology can't solve. And one of them is this. And we were talking about this earlier.
Oh, like in person. Yeah.
Oh, that's why when, we set this up and they're like, come on over to the studio.
Yeah.
Because we could have done a Zoom. We could have done anything like that. But we're feeling each other here. We're getting the emotions. And in my line of work in music and radio, and I'm in the country music field, but I talk to a lot of songwriters, and you know what? It's the same thing for them. And the pandemic changed a lot of things, but they would, during the pandemic, they were doing it all over Zoom. And they said, you know what? It just wasn't the same.
No.
But when we get together in a writer's round and we're sitting around a table, we feel the emotions, we see the emotions, you see the body language, you're like, yeah, and you start, it's like
energy.
And
right?
that's how it's
energy.
working here. Right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of energy here.
There's
yes.
I'm waiting to get hit by a football. But no, actually it's on the table. There it is right there. See, there it is. And actually my son said, you got to put that football on the table, Dad.
oh,
Yeah, but see, we have baseballs. I don't know if you
it was nice of him.
Yeah. So,
No, we were saying that because some of Safe Spaces groups are online, right? And our society has gotten to a point where they are more comfortable at home in their own space. And so if the only way I'm going to get them to seek help or seek support is get online, then I'm going to go with it, right? But the magic happens when you put people into a room.
It's happening here tonight.
It is happening here. And you can't create this through social media. You can't create this through AI. It is just human connection at its core. And it's hard to like describe in words. It really is.
Wow. I know. I'm just.
And I think that to that point, I think that we need to, and this is part of Tracy and I meeting and having, and we have to be deliberate and intentional about this. It's not going to happen on its own.
Right.
Left on its own, we are going in a very bad direction, and we need to be deliberate, and we need community. And I moved to Syracuse about 10 months ago.
Okay.
And part of the reason of moving here is I crave something that I don't have here. I'm completely untethered. I'm as lonely as I've ever been in my life, and I crave community, and that's and here the ironic thing is I knew that before I moved here, that that's the way that we solve these problems.
Yeah.
Is true, and I see it with young people, how disconnected we are. COVID was harder on adults than it was on young people.
Oh, I believe that.
By far.
I believe that. Yeah.
Because we were so used to the things that made our lives convenient. Remember before
Yeah,
the blind spots, right?
They took it right
so
away
used,
from
and
us.
it took it away from us.
Yep.
And we were forced to do this again.
Yep.
We were forced with our families, with friends. We were forced to, and we chose for safety reasons, right? We chose all the technology. And as adults, we've gotten lazy on getting back to being intentional about community.
You know, I'm reading some of the comments here. Here's a good one. It says, girls will ask another girl if they are all right. Why don't boys do that when they see other boys in trouble?
Why don't they, guys?
I was with a group of
Because they're too cool.
That shows vulnerability, right?
Yes. I was with a group of boys the other day. And I will say this about this generation of young boys. As adults, adult men are cynical, and women. Adults are cynical about about boys. And this gets into the conversation around masculinity that I'm so focused in on, and why.
Yeah, and I want to hear this.
Why I'm advancing something I call aspirational masculinity.
Okay.
And boys are I use this word craving, connection and intimacy. And I don't talk about intimacy in terms of a physical intimacy with a partner. I'm talking about human intimacy. They're craving their ability to live their authentic selves. And I was just with a group. I was just at a school in New Jersey, and I did a school assembly. Then I had a group of students come afterwards, and the boys that showed up, the first question they couldn't wait to ask is, how do we get past this culture that if I tell my friend, and one boy pointed to his friend and said, if I tell my friend I like his shoes, then I'm not glazing. And the one from the school's like, what does glazing mean? And there are certain things that when I hear them, I know exactly what it means.
All right, what does it mean?
Well, glazing to me, and this is how my brain went.
All right.
Because to me, it was you're soft and sweet like a glazed donut, right? That was my first thought, that you're glazing, and boys are like, yeah, that's right. That's actually how they meant it. If you're glazing, it's like you're glazing on him. You're sweet on him, right? And so there's a homophobic,
So now, right? So it goes in that direction. And
by the way, I just want to clarify something I said, because I don't like leaving words out there. I don't like the term homophobic, because it connotates that we're afraid of gay people, and we're not afraid of lesbians. And men who are afraid of gay men are afraid that gay man is going to treat him the way he treats women.
Why is that even an issue nowadays? You know, and it should be. I'm just
because we're still there. We're still uncomfortable with those things that we haven't been raised to be normal. And they are normal. Like we go back before about
100%.
What's normal,
100%.
But that homophobic, again, I'm using that term, is what those boys were saying. Why isn't it okay for me to tell my friend that I like his shoes without that language? That again, it goes back to you throw like a girl. That shaming language that they hear, and they want to be able to do that, the ability to do that without being shamed.
Wow.
Oof. Yeah.
This is, I mean, the masculinity thing, though, just keep going, because this is really, really good. And I think people need to hear this. And also I want our viewers and our listeners to know that, this book is still available. And I think they need to go out and get this.
Yes. I have not read it myself.
I need to buy
but
coffee.
I'm going to go out and get it too.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And, well, go ahead.
I could go on for a long time, but I won't. I said before is that the work that I and other men have been doing has been the work that women and survivors have asked men to do. It hasn't been the work that our boys need. And in that, the only reason we're talking about masculinity with boys and men, and even using that term, I ask men, when you hear the term masculinity, what do you think of? And most people think of the word toxic. And because the only form of masculinity that we talk about is the part of men's behavior that adversely impacts women's lives.
Right.
To your point that you've been affected by it. So the only form of masculinity that we're talking about with men is to stop that thing. And I always remind people that before we use toxic to talk about relationships or masculinity, we most often use toxic to talk about waste. You separate toxic waste from garbage. We've said it again. You separate toxic waste, which is why you have 2 trash receptacles in most responsible buildings, right? That are LEED certified. There's right. If you have a certain kind of building that has all up to every code and standard, you have 2 different receptacles. One for garbage and one for toxic waste. And this is a generation of boys who've only heard their identity as being male, as being toxic. What are we giving them? Yeah. And if we're telling them to get rid of that behavior because it harms other people's lives, including their own, which is where the suicide conversation comes in, including our own, if we're telling them to get rid of that, what are we giving them? And I blame my field of men who've been doing work around men's violence against women for people, and someone that your viewers and listeners should definitely, if you're an adult with a child in your life, especially a boy, you should know who Andrew Tate is. Because what Andrew Tate is doing, he's this former MMA fighter who's been charged with everything from rape to trafficking, who's a misogynist and just an awful purveyor of, but boys, he's saying something that resonates with boys. The boys don't like his misogyny. They don't like the misogyny and sort of how he treats women, but they do like the masculinity piece.
That's where they're connecting.
Because he's saying, listen, you want people telling you you're toxic? Let's show you what toxic looks like. Yeah, and that's why I said he's got the sword and he's talking about being a bad dude, right? And that resonates with boys because that's what we've been telling them that they are. And so we have to give boys something to which they can aspire, which is what aspirational masculinity. What do I want for you? Not what do I want you to do for someone else. I don't want you to do this work on you for someone else. I once had a woman who said, I don't think men can do this. I said, quite frankly, I'm not trying to make better boyfriends for your girlfriends.
Right.
I'm trying to make better men who are not going to put a shotgun to their head when they're in their 50s because they don't know how to evolve in the world.
Right.
And so that's it's a positive approach to being whole and authentic.
I know, and you mentioned before that leads to the suicide conversation, and loneliness has a lot to do with that as well. And we're trying to, we need to prevent that. We need to find out why and how can, what leads one on in that direction to.
Let me just say this about prevention.
Please.
We need to stop doing prevention work. We need to do promotion work. If we want to get better in the classroom, we don't teach to not fail, and we don't teach to pass by 66. We teach excellence in the discipline.
Gotcha.
If we want to win in athletics, we don't teach to not lose, coach to not lose. And you don't coach to win by a point. You coach excellence in the sport. Excellence. I love football. I love the excellence of. I don't care who wins and loses. Right. I don't. I didn't watch the Super Bowl. I don't care who wins and loses.
Well, I guess there goes that question.
Yeah, I was blown away by that one, by the way.
I was watching Seinfeld and my cousin Vinny. That
was on my list of questions, by the way. It was about the Super Bowl.
I didn't see the game. But I can tell you what Seinfeld episodes were. But we teach excellence in the sport. And so that there's love of the sport, there's innovation, there's sustainability in the love of it. And I love college football. I'm going to the Davy O'Brien Award in Fort Worth, Texas on Monday. So cool. I still love it.
So cool.
But I don't care who wins and loses, and that's what game day is. I'll go to, I love to watch people prepare to be excellent. And we have to do the same thing when it comes to how do we move towards aspirational masculinity? How do we move towards promoting positive mental health?
Right. So I know you said you didn't watch the Super Bowl, but all right. Now, neither one of my teams were in the game, but you know what? I did watch the Super Bowl, and you know what? Did I really care who won that game? I just wanted a good football game.
Sure.
And we got a good football game.
Yes, we did.
So, I mean, so it's not like, I wasn't particularly cheering for one team. Yeah. It was watching my board and watching the games. So,
there you go.
But no, I wasn't. No, it was, I guess that kind of goes along with what you're saying is it's more about a good game.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter who wins or who loses. Yeah. It's a good game.
Yeah.
And that's when you played. Is that what that was your thinking as well?
No, I want to win.
This ain't nah.
There's an All-American right there.
I'm a competitor in recovery. You know, when my daughters were very young, and how do you cut?
I was going to ask you about your daughters.
You cut out cards from, remember, highlights magazine.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, I would, we had a little
You
we had a little giraffe and a zebra and a lion, and you had a little card game. I was dealing from the bottom of the deck with my kids were like 3 and 4 years old. I was dealing hyenas from the bottom of the I was dealing hyenas from the bottom of the deck. I wasn't gonna lose to them. And they didn't know the difference. No, I'm a competitor.
Well, Highlights magazine.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I hit this. Go ahead. Now you got me. Oh, Jesus. Am I that old?
No, it's still, the Highlights magazine still around.
Is it really? Do they still have the Highlights is still there? Now, if I remember correctly, you had a page where you had to find certain animals.
Yes, I remember that page.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. You still have them?
No.
So tell us about your daughters a little bit. Somebody said ask them about his daughters.
What do you want to know about my daughters?
I don't
know. Wow, that's deep. I have a daughter who doesn't talk to me.
Been there.
And
but we've turned it around. So.
And that's probably one of the most painful and as you know, it's a gut wrenching daily and almost by the hour. And she's brilliant. She found her I saw it when she was very young. She scored a perfect score on her AP art exam. Ooh. And she's a senior in high school, one of 308 students worldwide, scored a perfect score. And she turned a lot of what happened with divorce and COVID and all those things that happened sort of simultaneously. And she went inward. And she's always an extraordinary writer, even when she was very, very young. She always had this sort of intense introspection. And so that's my younger daughter. She's a senior in high school. And then my older daughter is she's my mini me in good and bad ways, but mostly good. And she's a second-year student at the University of Vermont. And she is right now doing an internship in Boston, which is kind of cool because she's in the town where I went when I retired. And I dropped her off a few weeks ago and introduced her to some of the guys that I worked with, some of the people I worked with back in Boston. And she's interning at an ESL school. Very nice. And she's 19 years old and she's about to be 20. And she is as independent and she's a pretty incredible young woman. And I'm just
Excellent. You know what? I mean, we've all lived life. We've all had things happen. Very similar.
Yeah.
But there's one thing that I found out, even though they may, their actions may be over here, but I want to say inside, you know what? They love you. And they love you because, you'll always be dad.
Yep.
And it's, believe me, it's just, I think they have to get through this period and then they're going to go as you're getting older. I'm getting older. And I'm like, and I think they're going to realize that.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find the right words.
No, you're right. What were you gonna say?
No, I was gonna say that I've spent my entire life since I was a sophomore here at Syracuse, working with kids and working with other people's kids, and I've always had a much different view of my own, I think, than most parents, because I don't want to say that I never saw them as mine in the possessive. I always felt like it's a parent's job. And this, I think why parenting and being a parent is a mental illness. Because I think a parent's job is to learn who our children are, not the other way around. And so we spend a lot of time trying to get them to be who we are. Or want what we want,
or not make the same mistakes,
and And their mistakes are, kidding me? If I didn't make the mistakes I made when I was younger, I wouldn't be here now.
Right. No, exactly. I think all three of us could say
absolutely.
that. You know, I mean, oh God, I've made so many mistakes. I can't believe I did half the crap I did.
And now we're still here.
And I'm still here. And you know what? I think it's made me a better person overall because it's like, what? You know, you start thinking about this stuff and you don't want to go back down that road.
Which, by the way, and just to put a bow on this part of this conversation, which is why I don't see the same person you see sitting here. Because I was always afraid of people telling me I was something I wasn't. I was deathly afraid of that. And I never listened to it. I never thought of myself as a star. I never thought of myself as a hero. I never thought of myself as it was always scared the death out of me because I wasn't. You
know, I'm going to say that I'm glad you said that because now I started this conversation. I knew you were coming over. I was a little nervous, although I've been doing this for how many years? But it's like because you are who you are.
And I get that.
But now we've had this conversation and I now don't, I see Don McPherson sitting to my left, but you know what? I see a real guy here. Yeah. I see a real human being, a very down-to-earth human being, a very smart human being, somebody that, you know what? I would want to be a friend with and not look at as, you know, as Don McPherson, the All-American. And it's great. Don't get me wrong.
Oh, it's cool. It was cool.
Oh, I bet it was cool. But still, now we've had this conversation and understanding where you're coming from and your inner feelings are coming out a little bit. And it's like, this guy's really cool. This guy's real. This is, and I hope that other guys that are watching this realize that and listen to every word that you said, because that everything is so powerful. And now that you're working with Tracy and safe space,
you got it.
It
is a safe place as well.
Yes, exactly. It is.
Right?
It is.
Those words are interchangeable.
You know, I see nothing but just excellence and helping those that need help. And hopefully if somebody sees this, they can call Tracy or somehow go through Tracy to get a hold of you. And maybe there's a guy out there that says, I need somebody to talk to. I don't know. You know, we're all lonely a little bit.
Absolutely.
I don't care how good your relationship is. I don't care who you are. There's still that little bit that there's that loneliness inside you. Because,
you know, one of the things that I have to say is about moving to Syracuse is and being an outsider, but someone I've been around this community for 40 years, is what Tracy's doing. Other people are doing not the same work, but are doing the kinds of grassroots work that is so needed, that is so community centered. I think of Joe Horan, who runs the Building Men program, who does work. And I admire what Joe is doing. Joe is doing work that is similar to what I do, but in a much different and powerful way. And we have to learn as a community of helping people to come together as a community of helping people. And because if we don't come together, how do we expect people to come to us?
Right. No, absolutely.
And action speaks so much louder than words, right? Yeah. And we cannot expect to combat what's happening with our teens, with our younger generations, with our men, with all, if we don't start to come together. And that's always been the belief that mental health and wellness and all of that is so much bigger than we are. So much bigger. And community is the answer. It's just we crave that community. And it's interesting because we see it every week at the Dome, and we see it in these socially acceptable ways. Yet the layer we're missing is this vulnerability that happened here tonight, right? That happens in circles. It's take off that layer, like stop the pretending or whatever you're doing, right? Like, what is really going on? And how many of us actually ask that question to the people we love and care about? How many of us actually hold that space without trying to fix or try to make it better, but just letting them be? We don't know how to do that. Because if it's triggering, if Don's saying something and it's triggering something in me, I want to fix it. I can't sit with it.
Right.
So we are all, like you guys said when you're talking so beautifully about your children, we are all on our own journey, our own path, and we are only in control of us, right? Of ourselves.
True.
And so, like, I know that if Don says something that triggers me, there's something in me that I need to, continue to work on,
Why
right?
is that bothering me?
Right. Why is this bothering me right now, right? But we don't do that. We project it back on them.
Right.
So it's a constant blind spot that we work through one blind spot and the next one pops up, right? We're constantly doing that work. And just like our physical health, there is no end. There is no end game with this. We just try and do a little bit better the next day. And so this is a community initiative right here. And you're back for a reason.
Oh, yeah. And as daunting as that.
Sorry.
No.
Wow, she was at a roll.
No.
I felt that, guys.
No, I don't feel that's not daunting to me. That is so exciting to me.
Yeah.
And but I think for a lot of people that's scary.
Yeah, of course.
And I like to add humor to a lot of things that I do. Because I want people to know that what scares us sometimes, if we really lean into it, can be a lot of fun.
You know what they say? That's about fear someplace I've never been, right? So now instead of fear, scaring the hell out of me, I look at it as a challenge.
Right.
Right. What's on the other side of this?
Like,
what possibilities are on the other side of this? But for most people, fear holds them back daily.
Yep.
Wow. While you guys are chatting there, I was looking at some of the comments. Somebody's asking, in his opinion.
Your opinion,
My
Don.
opinion.
Wait, let me finish here. Let me finish.
Opinions are a scary thing. But go ahead.
In his opinion, why don't boys or men say "I love you" to their brothers? Adult men in saying bye. I don't know what she's. So to read it. In his opinion, why don't boys or men say "I love you" to their brothers? Adult men in saying bye. It's
what I said earlier.
With the glazed donut.
With the glaze, right?
Yeah.
With the glazing. There's a fear that saying "I love you." Again, it goes back to what I said before about how narrowly defined even the term love is. And I have my own. I don't do a lot of social media, and I used to do this more. I'll just post the word love. And the reason I do it is because there's so much negativity and judgment and ugliness and hate coming out of social media that I just can I just put the word love out there? And I'm with nothing. And there's probably 70 or 80 people that I've known throughout my life who always chime in. And sometimes they'll do the Beatles, "Love is all you need," or "All you need is love," or "Love makes the world go around." They'll quote something, or they'll just like it or whatever.
Yeah.
But the whole point of it is just to put the word love out there. And I don't mean romantic love. I don't mean intimate love. I just mean love. I mean, just unconditional. I love you. I love who you are. You exist in my world. And with no judgment, no agenda. I just care that you are well.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. And I tell people that, even other guys, that, "Hey man, I love you." You know, it's like somebody.
But we got to put the man in there sometimes. We got to say, "I love you, man." Hey man.
Still,
right?
I've gone, "Love you," in just a way of, because it's just, I'm glad he's in my life and we're good friends, and there's nothing more than that.
Right.
So that's.
But aren't we also changing this as a generation? Were you guys told "I love you" from your fathers?
Absolutely not.
No. Absolutely
so it wasn't
not.
modeled
And we
to
had
you.
two different bringing ups, so it just
it's pretty much the same. It's pretty much the same.
And I'm trying to think if Mom ever really did. I recall.
Yeah.
No, I know
I don't think you're alone in that. I
know they did.
I think the generation. You look at what that generation went through, and that's how I look back and the trauma that they were going through. Right. They were in survival mode most of their lives, right? "I love you" wasn't a thing we did back then. We didn't say that.
Right.
So we're changing that, but it takes a really strong man to do that, to say, I love you, right? To change how he was brought up and change it for the future of his son and his daughter. Strong. I use the word strong. it takes a change agent, right? That says, I want to do things differently.
Yeah.
Well, I make it a point to tell my kids that I love them almost every day. This is Zach, who you saw when you came in, who went crazy.
God, how can you know?
You know,
Exactly.
no, but I'm just saying that it's just, you know, every day before I leave to go to the radio station, it's like I'll go in his room. He's still like asleep or whatever, but I'll say, hey, Dad's going to work. All right. And it'll be like, hey, Zach, I love you. Have a great day. And he goes, love you, Dad. You know, so I always make it a point to do that. And even with my daughters, as we talked about before, it's just they're, you know, we had those tough times, but it's still, I love you.
Yeah.
I love you. And when we do speak, you know, on Sundays, or I talk to my other daughters here, one of them's local, it's always the phone call will always end, love you.
Yeah.
You know, so that we make that point.
Yeah.
It's family.
Yeah.
And,
you know, my son said to me the other day, who's just turned 8, he was like, yeah, Mom, I know, I love you. And we talk about our feelings. And I'm like, yes, Mom, win. Right.
Yes.
Ding, 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 ding,
Yes.
ding, ding.
Yes.
That's awesome. You know, this has been a great conversation here tonight. And of course, the book is out. You wrote it a whole lot of years ago, but it just got published, not that long
2019.
ago? 2019.
2019.
Okay, so it wasn't all that long
You want
ago.
to hear a quick story from the book about what you just
I
said?
would love to hear a quick story.
I wrote the book originally in about 2000 and no, take it back, in 1998.
Holy cow.
I wrote the original manuscript, and I was on Oprah back then.
I saw that picture.
Yeah, I saw that too.
And on set, I knew that I was going to do this. I told her during a commercial break that I wrote this book, told her the title. She was like, oh my God. She goes, I'm not going to tell the guy's name.
You'll get a book. You'll get a book.
Yeah.
No, sorry.
She said, call this guy. She gave me the guy's name, who's the president of Disney's publishing company. And I just thought to myself, I am on my way to Oprah's book club. I saw myself with lines. I saw the lines of people waiting for a signed copy at Barnes and Noble.
The lives were changing.
7th Avenue.
I got it, man.
There was a place called the Book Review in my hometown at the time. I just saw myself at the Book Review signing autographs, and it was going to be great. And so I get back to New York because I studied at the Beverly Wilshire Hotel in Chicago, where Oprah puts all of her guests. And
did you steal the bathrobe?
No. I actually didn't stay there. I'm just quoting it.
Okay.
But
he has the towel.
I get home. I call this guy's office, and he said, "Who's calling?" And I said, "My name is Don McPherson. Why are you calling?" And then here was the line: Oprah Winfrey suggested I give him a call. And I was like, that's it. I'm and I got on the phone. The guy called me back an hour later. He within hours, the manuscript was on its way. And within days, he rejected it. And the rejection letter is in the book.
Wow.
Verbatim. And the rejection letter, and I'll paraphrase, was, women don't need this book. Women buy books. Men won't read this book. Men don't buy books.
Tell me he's full of shit.
Wow.
No, but what I wrote in the book currently is that what I was hearing and what I was hearing from and I knew a lot of people in the publishing world. I had friends. I was pretty not famous guy, but I was a well-connected guy. I was on the board of the Ms. Foundation and U.S. National Committee for UN Women. I was connected, and I talked to some of the top agents in the book world. I talked to publishers, and everyone told me that the book buying public was 18 to 35-year-old college-educated white women, and that men don't buy books, and they're certainly not going to buy a book about masculinity and all this. And so what I say in the book is, well, 50 Cent at the time. Do you know who 50 Cent is?
Yeah. It's your birthday.
Yeah, that guy. Okay. If you said to me, if I know 50 Cent,
I'm a music guy.
Okay. I couldn't name one 50 Cent song. So that's why I said, that's why I'm asking.
It's your birthday.
Yeah, I don't know. I heard that they allowed one of the people who usually takes tickets at the Super Bowl to do the halftime show. I don't know how that happened, but apparently they let an usher do the song. I don't know. I'm showing my ignorance and trying to inject a little humor. But 50 Cent had his own imprint at Simon & Schuster. Okay. So if you're telling me that the book buying public is 18 to 35-year-old college educated white women. How many of those women are buying 50 cents books? Are buying books about some, and again, I'm not saying this to disparage. I've been criticized for disparaging 50 Cent as some,
but it's not meant to be that way. I get you.
Right. So, but what's he writing about that is appealing? And he wasn't writing about men being whole and caring and loving. He's writing about it. And so the publishing world was dictating what people were reading. The publishing world was saying that men don't care. I didn't write the book because I'm some anomaly in society. I wrote the book, and I've been doing this work for 30 years. I've been doing this work, and I've been in locker rooms and fraternity houses, in elementary schools, in every state in this country except for Alaska and Hawaii. And I can tell you, men do care. Boys do want to have the conversation.
Yes.
And what that publisher was telling me 30 years ago was men don't care, and that's BS. Men do care.
Men do care. 100%. Wow. Go out and get the book. Amazon.
Yes, buy a bunch. Buy a bunch.
And they come.
I need to grab one too.
Yeah, me too.
Thanks.
Maybe we know somebody. Yeah.
Maybe we know somebody.
I know somebody.
Okay.
But
okay.
this has just been such a great conversation here tonight, and so much fun to have you all here. I'm going to go back to this camera view. That way we can see everybody.
Yeah.
But just wonderful. Can we talk football?
Maybe, but go ahead.
Philadelphia Eagles.
No, nothing. I haven't watched an NFL game in 20 years.
You play for the Lions too, right?
No.
Okay.
I played for the Eagles and the Oilers.
Oilers. That's what I was thinking of.
Yes.
The Oilers.
Yeah.
Sorry, my bad. Canada. Who'd you play for?
Hamilton and Ottawa.
Yeah. Was that? Is it a whole lot different?
Yes.
Okay.
Completely different. Philosophically, a completely different game. 3 downs instead of 4. 20-second play clock. Players can be in motion. The end zone's 15 yards deeper.
That kind of mess you up a little bit. Did you knowing, playing here in the States, the Eagles, and of course college years with SU, and all that.
I like to think of myself as a quarterback, as a kid, that a quarterback is more like an administrator. Is your job is the short amount of time that the ball's in my hand, the better. And so in the CFL, the quarterback's kind of like a point guard. Whereas in American football, the quarterback's more like an administrator.
Really?
Your job is to,
I get that when you watch the way the game goes.
Yeah, your job is to, that's why everyone loved, Peyton Manning saying Omaha, Omaha, which is everyone gets stuck on that. But what Peyton Manning was very good at was being an administrator at the line of scrimmage, was putting people in the right position to win. And so in that regard, as I said, you in American football, the way that I was raised with Coach Mack, who was such a technician of a coach, so you put your offensive line in the best position to win. You put your receivers, you put your players in the best position to win. Whereas in the CFL, you do that, but you're more a part of that. Gotcha. Because of the way the game is played, and it's a very wide field. And the older I got, the less I was interested in running.
Well, let's just face it, quarterbacks nowadays, they don't run unless they absolutely have to.
But the NFL game is I find it extraordinarily boring. I try to watch games, and I'm like, really?
Well, they got Taylor Swift now, which kind of increased the younger audience.
The fact that Taylor Swift was a draw should tell you everything about the game. No, I'm serious.
No, and no disrespect, but then again, it did a lot for the game.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't. It did nothing for the game.
Well, look what. Maybe it did it for the NFL.
It did something for the entertainment of the product at the end. The fact that they played the Super Bowl in Vegas turns my stomach. The fact that the NCAA holds its convention in Vegas, the fact that Syracuse is going to go to Las Vegas for a game, then now it's UNLV, and I give them that. But the fact that the new president of the NCAA is saying that college football should embrace gambling turns what's happening now, and you're going to get me on the soapbox that I really should not get on right now, because your board will light up. College athletics and college football in particular is moving towards an immoral place.
Really?
Where, we don't care if these guys graduate, right? All these kids that are transferring in, transferring out, how many of their credits are transferring in and out of the schools with them? They're not many.
Yeah, that's true.
And what NIL was a last ditch effort to silence the people that said that Nick Saban was making too much money. And what we've discounted in that is education. I didn't move back to Syracuse because I made money playing football here. I moved back here because of the education that I received here. I moved back here because of the community that I lived in here. That's why I live in Syracuse.
But you made your money playing. I don't want to even.
I didn't.
But not here. But the Eagles, I mean, when you were in the NFL.
I didn't make a lot of money playing football.
Well, that was a lot of years ago, too. So.
I make more money doing what I do now than I did playing football.
Wow.
Yeah, I once played.
Now it's crazy.
I once played in the CFL, and after taxes, the exchange, and everything else.
I can only imagine. Right there's the answer.
By the way, I was one of the highest paid players. I was one of the highest paid players in the CFL at the time, and what I brought home to the U.S. was like almost nothing.
Oh my God! And you look at it nowadays, and we look at the salaries and what these players are making.
Yeah.
And it's just, I have a hard time. I look at what I do and, I don't expect to make a whole lot of money. I expect to make a little bit more, but still it is what it is. And I'm thankful I have a job and I love what I do. But I look at some of these players, whether it's baseball or football. I mean, what these guys are getting paid. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
It's like, what? And how can they afford to do that? It's got to be crazy.
Well, think about
unless Taylor Swift goes to every game, then they sell out the stadium, and you got all.
Take Taylor Swift out of it.
Okay.
Take the highest paid player on any team, and understand that there's a bunch of players around him that's making, maybe not similar, but making a lot of money, and then recognize that there's all kinds of people in the stands that work there who take tickets and sell hot dogs and park cars and all those. There's all these other people, and there's usually just 1 or 2 or 3 people who own that. In other words,
I don't know. You're right.
In other words, there's somebody else who's making a lot
of
more money than those guys.
And now look at the betting. Look at all that's going on. And because it was in Vegas this year, the big game was in Vegas.
And this is why I say
record
the game
numbers
in Vegas turns my stomach. There's arguably no more destructive addiction than gambling.
Yeah. Agreed.
And it's getting worse because now we have all these programs. You can sit there and watch the game and have your phone out and have it on these different sites, and you can gamble right then and there. It's crazy, and it does become addictive.
And the rising number of people with gambling are young men.
Can I ask you really? Maybe you don't want to answer. Give me an answer.
I lower my chin.
But
I'm already in trouble.
And we talk about social media and we talk how bad it can be, and I totally get that. And I have to, with the business that I'm in, I mean, social media actually kind of helps me, but I see that other side of it as well. But like these games, these football games, and you get the NFL is rigged. The NFL is rigged. The NFL is rigged.
This conversation with someone.
Oh boy, is it?
No. There's too many moving parts, and there's too many. It may seem like there's people who would benefit from that, but on that field who played in the Super Bowl the other day, I didn't see the game, but I will tell you that there were a bunch of guys on that field who next year will not be in pro football. There are a bunch of guys on that field that are making league minimum. There are guys on that field making league minimum. There's special teams guys. There are guys who probably didn't even play in the game.
There's quite a few.
And they're scratching and clawing to stay in the league because right now there's another group of kids coming out of college wanting to take their jobs. So that would mean if it was rigged, you'd have to get all those guys on board.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And
it's a good answer. I like that.
There's just you can't. I jokingly say that I'm a competitor in recovery. You tell me you want me to do what? Are you kidding me?
Right.
Agreed.
There's no way I'm taking a dive or doing something because somebody who's not here said something. Are my coaches telling me to take a dive or to manipulate? Heck no.
Do you realize I just asked that question, and when I walk upstairs after this podcast, my wife's going to go, "You actually asked."
But here's the problem, and this is why I think that it's going in the wrong direction is when you start allowing Vegas into the conversation. And I love the Mannings. I know them well. They are the first family of football. All levels. Archie is the head of the National Football Foundation, and I love them. But when they started doing DraftKings commercials and whatever else, I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yep.
What are you people doing?
It's all about the money, though. They're getting paid big bucks to do that.
And that's where I say, when I came out of, this is not about me, but when I came out of school, I wrote a letter to all 28 general managers in the NFL, and I said, if you're not going to play me a quarterback, don't draft me. I didn't care about the money. My integrity, and this is the part that bothers me, is that we do a lot of preaching about sports, that sports build integrity and leadership and sacrifice and community. It's all BS. It was never true. It's just like I said, that men co-opt certain things and give it different meanings. We co-opt that sports builds character. No, it doesn't. No, not any more than practicing piano till your fingernails bleed. It is what do adults use that platform to teach? Because you can use that platform. In my opinion, sports was I win, you'd lose. Sports didn't build community. You're kidding me?
Yeah, I hear you.
And we started that, and I'll get on a soapbox. I spent many years doing this work around youth sports, and I had a parent many years ago. It was probably the only time I ever not broke down, but cried and lost my voice in the middle of a talk. Other when George D. Leone died. But when I had a parent say, what happens if my son is not good enough to play? I said, how old's your son? And she said, he's 6. There's first of all, there's no such thing as not being good enough to play. That's why it's called play.
Yeah.
And wow. To tell a child that they're not good enough to play is criminal. And we started going down this road where we started monetizing sports. And we've gotten away from those quote unquote the assumptions of altruism, and that's what NIL is. NIL is not teaching young men and women who are competing in sports in higher education to learn from it. We're teaching them to try to exploit it the same way everybody else is exploiting them.
Wow, man!
Wow,
to hear that from you, that dude. I just banged my hand on the table and don't know what to say. But wow, so have you?
It's a first for Skip.
I know. It is. You're absolutely right. And see, that's what I'm saying. This whole relationship here now, it's like, this is Don. He's my best buddy. It's happening. But playing in the NFL, what kind of crazy things went on? What about? Let's have a little bit of fun. Come on. You're Don McPherson. You played with the Eagles. You were the quarterback. You were the quarterback that everybody was watching, and it was I was freaking cool to know that you came from SU.
I was the backup to Randall Cunningham, who was on the front cover of Sports Illustrated as the ultimate weapon. Randall was the ultimate weapon. You know what that made me?
the second out.
Yeah, the second one that was the
runner-up.
His bags.
I know, but
you're almost good enough.
Almost not quite. So you don't make the cover.
You're not ultimate. You're a weapon. You're more of a tool. You're not a weapon.
There must be a lot of crazy things that go on that we don't see within the team, though. You know what I mean? Just kind of fun things, and everybody kind of, I don't know, good parties.
Gosh,
all right.
I wasn't.
Don't talk about the parties.
Yeah, we don't talk about the parties. I think it in many ways was anticlimactic. It was not
just go out and play the game, get paid.
It was a job.
It's a job.
It was a job. And
but you loved your job.
Oh yeah.
Okay, exactly. I mean, so is it really a job?
It wasn't. Well, yes. And what I mean by that is that once you sign a contract to play to do the job, it's no longer a choice, right? You've signed the contract to do this job. You don't get to say, I'm going to take a day off. You don't those things. And I was tremendously jealous of the guys. I remember Steve Young got his law degree and he still wanted to play. I'm like, how do you get a law degree and you still want to do this? Right? Yeah. Like you had, and I remember outgrowing it. And I was jealous of guys who still, it was always fun. Don't get me wrong. It was always fun, but I outgrew the climate. I outgrew the culture. Yeah. And I remember I'm still to this day, I see guys who are in it and they're my age and they're like, they still want to play. I said to Jeff today, I'd be
breaking an arm and a leg.
Yeah. They still want to, I still think I could come back in my head, but I don't want to. But my ego says I can still get out there and do that. I can't touch my toes. But I was always jealous of guys who were in it for a long time as players, because I outgrew that.
What about coaching?
Once again, I wanted to be involved. Where I wanted to be involved at SU more, and I wouldn't be an X's and O's coach. I'd be more of a coach of environment, of culture, and that was where my interest was with the program. But I've never coached, and part of it is almost goes back to what I said earlier. But I'm not overly concerned with who wins and loses. I want to build strong men and competitive players.
But you could be a coach doing that, but the focus would be a little bit different because I get what you're saying, and maybe that's what they need is somebody, not a coach on the sidelines or whatever, but a coach to work with them as a team or individually and say, all right, guys, make them feel better and stuff like that. That's a whole different, it's a coach, but it's a whole different.
And I do think, along the lines of the mental health conversation, to be a college student right now and to be a college athlete right now, the scrutiny that they're under with social media, the scrutiny that they're under with college athletics the way it is now, it is that the need for that. And again, I'm speaking as someone who still thinks, and I'll speak specifically here, that it's Syracuse University. It's not the Syracuse football team. In other words, it still is, and this is what bothers me about the conversation around NIL, is that part of the way that NIL came about was a discount of education. Was saying that education doesn't matter. Was saying these kids are being exploited.
They need to play.
I'm sorry. No, not only was my experience at Syracuse as a student beneficial to my life, I whether you like them or not, to me is irrelevant. But one of my fellow SU alums is the president of the United States. And the first time I met Joe Biden, people were like, "Oh, you just met the vice president." Well, I'd met him before. I'd known him for a long time. I met him playing basketball when he was in the Senate in Delaware, and I was playing for the Eagles. We played in a pickup basketball game. He came up to me and said, "Hey, I got my law degree from Syracuse." Right? That's what the value of an education is. That's the value of Syracuse University. Yeah. I don't care if you have a kid who makes $1 million in NIL. That $1 million is going to be gone. You think he's going to be investing in long term? If NFL players are going broke the way they're going broke, what are we doing to help these young men who? And
oh my God, you're so right.
Talking about all that stuff, but the real value that they have is the relationships. That's what higher ed is. Why do you think the fraternity system is so powerful? It's the alumni. It's the ability to come out of there a part of something very unique within something very unique. And to come out of Syracuse debt free. Oh,
it's Syracuse University. I'm just saying, it's a great
you
school.
Tell me that there's not an NIL deal that's worth that. That's worth what other people are paying in student loans.
I know.
And so
I get you.
The whole way that NIL came about prior to the NCAA just throwing its hands up were a number of states saying that kids are being exploited and they should be able to use their name, image, or likeness. When I published my book, on the back cover of my book is a picture of me in a Syracuse University uniform. I had to ask for permission for that, and I very proudly did so. I had no problem asking, because Don McPherson in just a regular football uniform means nothing. It meant something in a Syracuse University uniform. I get more out of them than they get out of me. 100%.
Wow. This has been great. This has been a deep conversation.
Yeah.
Several different. We went down a lot of roads. You realize
we did.
We went on some back roads. Yeah, probably you were a little nervous about.
Off-road.
But I just want to say what an honor it is to have you, and Tracy came up with this, and just to get you in my pod zone, and it's something I've been doing for a while. But to have somebody of your stature to be sitting here and telling your story, what you're about and what your goal is, and getting with Tracy and Safe Space is just wonderful. How is now, if somebody watches this and they want to look into Safe Space a little bit more, give us some basic
Absolutely. Info. We're on social media under Safe Space CNY. Safe
you hear
Space.
That, Don? They're on social
media.
I know. Sorry, Don.
And they're very good at it.
Okay. Go ahead.
And then the website, which is safespace.cny.org. So really you can sign up for classes, groups all on there, or you can call and inquire. Our strategy is to help people sort of dip their toe into this, because safe space is a more preventative model. We are done getting people to their breaking point, right? We are trying to normalize that community and support circles are a thing of the now, and that we all need them. It is not a black and white thing. And so we have 16 different groups right now, and then we have workshops and classes. And so, yes, we ask you to inquire. Inquire.
But
away.
you're doing all this,
And
but
donate. And support.
thank you.
Yeah, that would
I was
be
just
really
going to
helpful.
go because what
We are a
doing,
nonprofit.
It's
Yes.
a nonprofit 501c3, and 501c3.
Yep, you got it.
So, in other words, you're putting a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of money into this.
Yes.
They need, this is your life, and what I know you've turned your life around. You have done just a tremendous job doing what you're doing. You got a beautiful family. You're making it work. You're doing personal experience, put you here at this table today.
Yeah, it's kind of insane, huh?
Yeah.
Facing those fears, guys, right?
It is.
You never know. But yes.
Singing great songs while you're doing it. But no, exactly right. And now with Don,
I know,
and Don's coming on board to help out with the men's side of it and masculinity and all that.
We don't know what this looks like yet, right?
We're working on it though,
we're
right?
still exploring that, but
yeah,
there's a clear alignment.
The podcast is called Skip Happens.
I love that.
Think about that, because in life,
Skip happens.
Skip happens. And when skip happens, we have a place to go.
Oh, we have a safe space.
We have a safe space, and we got two of the best people sitting right here.
Look at that.
In the pod zone. Yeah. So, and remember, when you leave here tonight, you just get a little wave to those houses across the street. Everybody's got because believe me, that they probably got the computer right in front of the window watching this. And they're going to say, okay, when I sign off, they're going to go,
You're afraid to go out of the house.
They should be coming out any time now.
I feel like it's like,
my God.
like a horror movie. Well, we're going to stay down here.
No, all kidding aside, I'm very fortunate to have what I have and be in the neighborhood that I'm in. And, we're all like family here. And to have you guys here, and I consider myself, part of your family, I hope, and vice versa. And if there's anything that we could do now that you moved here, you ever want to get together and maybe do some sort of a podcast or come in and do your own thing, you're more than welcome to come down here and do it anytime that you would like. Or I can bring a system to you and we could set up the podcast, and you can, if you want to do something at Safe Space, you know what I mean? Just you two could do it, and I'd set things up for you. But thanks for watching, everybody. Don't forget, go out and get the book. You Throw Like a Girl. I was told that. Were you all right? I know I was wrapping it up. But there I go.
That's all right. That's right.
And we free.
And I just made a left turn. Hang on. So you've been a quarterback. Have you ever been told you throw like a girl?
No.
Okay. Well, that's the end of the podcast.
And thanks, Don.
But I'm glad you said that. It fit well.
I got beat up every day of my life. I'm the youngest of 5, 2 older brothers. One played in the NFL. The other one was a professional boxer, ranked 2nd in the world.
Holy cow.
When I was here. So my childhood was a lot of getting beat up every day.
But that made you a better person and a stronger person.
I don't know about that. It just makes me not like those people very much.
You love them. They're family. Come on. All right. Don McPherson, everybody. He's been sitting with us here tonight. And, of course, Tracy Dando. Murgler Dando. Is it Dando?
It's Dando. It's officially Dando now.
Dando.
Yeah. Back to my origins. Okay.
But I want to thank you both for being here. It's some great information, a whole lot of fun on Skip Happens. And make sure you look it up online, of course. Yes. And no, I go ahead.
You know what? Well, I just want to say thank you, because this is what Tracy doesn't always get this kind of platform.
Yeah.
And so I've been around long enough to know that this is a special opportunity for her, for me. I mean, I get to do this because we can throw some football in there. But to be able to highlight what she's doing is really, really beneficial.
Yes,
so
thank you, Skip.
Well, with your help too, but still, no, to me, it means a world. It's pretty awesome. Can you hold do you know how to hold a baseball?
No.
Can you hold a baseball? Okay. All right.
Just like a caveman.
Put it back. Oh, look at you got it right. That's how you do it.
Yeah.
Zach's going to show you how to hold it. All right. Good night, everybody. Thanks for watching Skip Happens, and make sure you check them out online. The wonderful Don McPherson, Tracy Dando is here with us from A Safe Space as well. Have a good night, everybody. Good night, neighbors. Everybody wave. Yeah, good night, neighbors.
Good night, neighbors.
Yeah. All right, we're off.